Hello, 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 and welcome to the Babe Bulletin podcast, where we talk self-love, empowerment, boudoir, and anything else that makes us feel like a total babe. My name is Alicia. I'm a boudoir photographer and a body liberation expert, and we have a very fun guest in the studio today to talk all things reading and spicy novels, which I'm very, very excited about. We are here with Adah from A Blonde Bookish Girl on Instagram.
Mhm.
And I'm just so happy that you're here because I hate talking into the void by myself. So
Thanks for having me.
thank you for joining me. Okay, so I was scrolling on your Instagram today, and you are such like just an avid reader. You read so much. I'm literally blown away by the fact that like you had one post where you're like, these are 4 books I read in 48 hours. And I'm like, how? That's amazing. So where does your love for reading spark from? Let's start there.
Honestly, my parents. And after we talk about my love for reading coming from my parents, they can turn this off. My parents, my mom always read to me. They were always modeling reading. And I just grew up with books in the house and I learned to read at a young age. And that was always the primary form of entertainment that they fostered. So that's just always been my biggest hobby through my whole life. So,
Okay, so then at some point in this love for reading,
mhm.
then we pivot and we
Yeah,
we
we
head down
pivot
the
really hard.
romance novel lane, right? Which was
Yeah.
probably a different genre than what you grew up
Yeah.
reading. So tell me then what sparked that interest.
Well, romance is like it's a very wide genre because there can be young adult and even children's books with that theme of romance and love and connection. And so even as a teen, I read a lot of YA where that was part of the story,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like sexually explicit because then that's not appropriate for that age. And then as I got older and I created my Instagram account, that's really where I was like, wait, there's there's more. And it was just like that natural, like, coming of age growing up. I started my account when I was 19, and, um, so I've been doing it for almost 7 years, 6 or 7 years, whatever my math is, and
We're in a creative space. There is no math here.
yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah, you people don't hire me for math. So it was just like a natural progression of, somebody's popping up with this recommendation, and then during COVID when, like, Book Talk really took off and, like, Bookstagram really took off, all of the recs were popping off, and what else were we gonna do all day? I mean
Yeah, I don't like I'm so happy that you're here because this is a genre of literature that I'm not super well versed in.
Mhm.
And somehow I think because I do boudoir photography, I am still on Book Talk and like
Yeah.
Kink Talk. And so I
Yeah.
get all of those videos and I'm like, this is fascinating. I just don't know much about
Yeah.
it. So I guess you have a fantastic Goodreads list. And I'm curious about what a book needs to do in this genre to get like 5 stars from you.
From me, I am the least pickiest reader. If I read it and I was like, "Cool, yeah, I liked that." It could be the most minor thing. One time I read a book and, the character was from Detroit, that's where I call home, and I was like, "Cool, 5 stars." Do I know anything else that happened in that book? No. Sometimes, like, really some people are like, "Well, the prose and this and" I don't I don't care. If I had a good time, if I had fun, if I enjoyed it, typically that's if I read it in one sitting because I'm a fast reader, so that's kind of the gauge that I'll use. Then I'm like,
Okay.
"Okay, yeah, cool." If I
Oh.
laughed, if I cried, if it made me feel anything, 5 stars.
Oh my gosh,
I'm
amazing.
not we're not reading for there's, like, this idea that people feel like they have to read for all of this self-development. They need to read the self-help books and this book and that and feel and all the classics and feel so intellectually stimulated. And there's a place for that and a time for that. Uh I read for entertainment. This is my
Yeah,
fun.
100%.
I'm not reading to learn how to be a better person, I'll be completely honest. I'm reading to escape the world,
Mhm.
escape my day. And sometimes that's into a whole different world in fantasy, and sometimes that's just into a alternative universe of our current world, where all things go, all relationships are good and normal and loved and accepted and all people are accepted and that's not our reality. So it's really nice
Mhm.
to escape that.
Yeah, I think, like, escapism and entertainment are 2 totally valid and understandable
Mhm.
reasons to want to read.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to school for writing, so it was very much like, what is the intellect behind this,
Mhm.
and breaking down the prose, and like we read a lot in college. And if I'm being honest, I think the amount of reading I had to do to become a good writer is why I don't read much anymore,
That's
because I
fair.
just kind of got burnt out. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, but Ulysses, I don't think it's a very good book.
I was bored, I fell asleep
Yeah,
multiple
like, I
times.
don't like that novel. That novel may have killed my love for reading. So,
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that, like, no, this you can enjoy a book for the sole purpose of enjoying it.
Yeah.
You don't have to turn it into an essay
Yeah.
on why X, Y, and Z was good. You
Mhm.
can just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a totally, like, fantastic reason to pick up a book
Yeah.
off of a bookshelf. So, I guess kind of what are you looking for when you are trying to find, like, your next, I don't know, spicy novel read? Is there anything that you see and you're like, I gotta check that out"?
I mean, there's so many things. And it's not like a derogatorily thing to say that a book isn't mentally stimulating because romance and fiction can be like such great platforms and avenues to explore really deep topics about like the world or identity or things
Mm,
we go through in a low stakes way. And so sometimes that's like without like there's so much value and benefit in it that's not necessarily like a nonfiction book. But when I'm looking for a new read, I am like what Book Talk would call a mood reader. So whatever, I'm not like I'll make a list of I want to read these 10 books and then I'll I'll probably throw the whole list out and just choose whatever whatever like, random quote comes across my TikTok that intrigues me and I'm like, "Okay, yeah." But I have my list of authors that I typically am always reading their new releases or their like backlist reads that I hadn't like I discovered them after those books came out and so now I'm trying to go back and read everything they've written and romance is often categorized by tropes. So there's
mhm.
like the common tropes that you see in all types of media or entertainment for romance. So you'll probably hear like enemies to lovers. And so that is a theme or a trope that is in all types of media and is very common in romance. And so if you want like books with that dynamic, there's a whole list. For me, like I love going to like a small town. So I love a small town romance where you have this whole typically there are certain things that in different tropes are expected in those tropes. So in a small town, typically you have like a cast of these really cute, quirky side characters that just are a little bit meddling because they're a little bit nosy. They're in a small town with
Yeah,
um
that sounds right. I grew
n-
up in a small town.
yeah,
Yeah, that sounds about right.
lovingly not much to do, but it be invested in the young people of their town finding love. And it's that's something I love. I also am always drawn to books where like the women are in like more leadership roles, but also are just so like unabashedly confident in themselves. And that's a newer like this is newer to the conversation of like all different sizes of bodies and different races and different um sexual orientations or sexual preferences or relationship dynamics are now being represented in romance books. And so to me, that's always something I'm drawn to where I'm like, "Oh, this woman looks like me and she isn't afraid to ask for what she wants and she gets everything that she puts her mind to and she is treated well by the person that she's with and that is really empowering to see that like yeah is a big she's a plus size woman, she's a curvy girl, whatever phrasing you want to
Mhm.
use, and she gets to find love with somebody who loves her for her, whereas for so long different some of the like especially when it comes to romance or anything in like the sexual or explicit content, uh anything that was deviating from the norm. So
Mhm.
anything that was not for like cisgender white straight males
Yeah.
was not created for the other, but for that preference. So even for so long, like gay and lesbian porn was created for straight men. straight white
Mhm.
men.
Mhm.
And it's like, so that's inherently not accurate, not
Yeah.
accurate
Yeah.
and inappropriate.
Yeah.
And so now it's all types of people getting to write content for their audience, and that's really cool and empowering to see,
Oh, I love
because
that.
everybody deserves to see themselves fall in love in a relationship that they want at the pace that they want, the dynamics that they want, and just be fully loved and experience pleasure and all of that, however that looks for them.
Yeah. I could not agree more, and I'm so happy to hear that that's the direction that some of these romance novels,
Mhm.
these authors are headed. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up seeing, the Danielle Steele novels on
Mhm.
my mom's side of the bed, right? And like I could tell you every single cover looks the same,
Mhm.
the exact same two types of models on the
Yeah.
cover. And without even cracking open the book, I can tell you the dynamic of the relationship. I feel pretty confident I could do that. So I'm I'm thrilled to hear that this is the direction that some authors are taking to be
Yeah.
more inclusive and to show more diversity inside of the novels, because this is what we talked about when we first met. Like, people of all shapes, sizes, genders, sexualities can and should be having good sex,
Yeah.
great sex. People out there are having these relationships, but you don't see it.
Yeah.
And when you don't see it, you don't think it exists
Yeah.
or that it's not possible for you. And that's extremely frustrating. It's devastating to self-esteem.
Mhm.
It's you know, there's no good that comes from that. So, I guess when you're like when you're reading these novels and you come across something like that, you mentioned, it feels empowering to
Mhm.
you. I don't Could you like speak more on that? What does it mean to you to see a character who perhaps looks like
Mhm.
you in some way out there taking charge or having great sex or like
Yeah.
killing it in this book? Like, what does that mean for you?
So many things, because fiction in general, not just romance, is one of the most powerful ways we can learn empathy for people who aren't like ourselves either.
Mhm.
So, not just empowering for me to see a, the first time I read a book where the girl looked like me and was having an orgasm with a man was, it was like the most wild experience for me to be reading that and being like, it like when like people make the joke it changed my brain chemistry. No, that changed my brain chemistry because I had been reading romance for a couple years, and I had never, it maybe sometimes been alluded to, but it was never explicitly like spoken out and described what her body looked like and how it moved. And so it was really like affirming to feel normal
Mm.
and to see
Mhm.
that like porn is not accurate. Especially porn with plus size women is not great.
Yeah.
And so to have some form of content that is actually accurate was really like, oh, so I'm normal. Like this is okay. And this is good. And then to see all like, I'm obviously not a gay man. Just
What? What?
shocker. But to even, the book I just read the other day was two gay men. One was a professional hockey player, and one was like a doctor of physical therapy. Um, and to see them have build this relationship and fall in love and essentially be this alternative universe of a sports world that American sports and hockey is super not inclusive. But this author is one of my favorites because she is rewriting that world to be more inclusive to all fans and rewriting relationship dynamics. And she's writing about a polyamorous couple, and she's writing about a gay couple, and one of them is one of the hockey players, and like that's so, and it's also an interracial relationship, and that I can't relate to any of that
Mhm.
because I am not a hockey player, a gay man. I am not black, and I am also not a doctor of physical therapy. But it gives you so much more like depth and understanding to other people, and to see it's not just about the explicit content. It's
Mhm.
almost never about the explicit content because the explicit content in an average romance novel is like somebody on Book Talk did the math. I don't remember her name, but people will know. And she counted it. And in the book that everybody says is like so spicy, and all of the derogatory things where they're like, it's dirty and it's blah. We don't subscribe to that here.
Yeah, no.
It was like a 350 or 60 page book and it was 11 pages.
Isn't that funny that something gets just degraded to
Mm-hmm.
its least part?
Yeah. And it like discounts the
Yes.
340 pages of relationship development and character development and actual plot and all of the things that lead to really great sex and connection is completely discounted for the
Mm-hmm.
explicit content. And because it's most primarily romance is written by women for women,
Yeah, that's
women's pleasure has never been.
poo-poo. We don't need to talk about it.
Exactly.
We don't need to talk about it. It's not important. You're here for us.
Yeah.
You know.
And
It's
that's where it's like I get so like fired up when people want to like talk shit,
mm-hmm.
essentially on romance or women's pleasure because it's like, oh, so we only can have content that is graphic for white men
Yeah.
straight
Oh, you
in
didn't
that.
know this? We only exist for the pleasure of
Yeah.
white men. Oh, this
Ugh.
drat. It's yeah, it's extremely frustrating. I mean, the genre that I'm in
Yeah.
faces some of the similar critique. It is
Yep.
not uncommon to talk about boudoir with someone who just amounts it to its least part, which is like,
Mhm.
oh, there's nudity involved, therefore it must be pornographic.
Yeah.
And it's not because, at least in my world, I see the difference being like porn is for solely for a viewer who
Mhm.
almost kind of wants like possession over what they're viewing,
Yeah.
and so that they can, you know, get off and then
Yep.
move on with their day. There's like an ownership of what they're viewing
Yeah.
almost. Whereas with boudoir, it is about the person in front of my camera, and the
Mhm.
ownership lies with the subject,
Yeah.
not the viewer. And even with novels being, someone is reading it and consuming that
Mhm.
content, the ownership I think still lies with the characters, even if
Yeah.
they're made up. The ownership is lying with them
Mhm.
and their journey and their story and
Yeah.
that relationship building.
Yep.
And you get to be a part of it. You get to be a
Yes.
part of that world.
Yeah.
They're sharing it with you. The authors decided to let you in on
Yeah.
this. And I feel like that's at least the difference in the boudoir world. I
Mhm.
don't know. I mean, for you, how would you describe the difference? Or
Mhm.
what do you say to someone who's just like, "Oh, you're reading smut. Oh, that's porn. That's ugh, that's just dirty and there's no
Yeah.
value in that."
I mean, well, the porn ends when the man finishes, so but the book doesn't end
Oh,
when the
excellent
man
point. Wow,
finishes.
yeah, you know what?
Like, that was, like, my
Wow,
first
yeah.
thought.
See, I'm learning so much. That just like set off,
Yeah.
yeah, this like little epiphany of like, "Oh yeah, shit. Yeah, that's a huge
Yeah.
difference."
You get, like, context, you get so much more, and it's not about at the end of the day, the book isn't about the sex. It's about the relationship, it's about the emotional journey. It's about how these characters started in one spot and typically were alone or lonely or unhappy, and then through a journey of self-discovery and maybe some discovery together, they are now happy and in a different phase of life. And whether or not, the book ends with them, some books end with them, in an epilogue, get married and having children, and some books end with them just happy for now.
Mhm.
And wherever the book falls in that's okay. That's, because everybody's happily ever after looks different in every relationship. And that is just a snapshot of that relationship at that, moment in time.
Mhm.
But it's so much deeper than just the sexual content. And that's where it's again, like you said, everything is just degraded down to the smallest part of it because we don't want to have conversations about the power that the power of women collectively seeing men written by women essentially.
Mhm.
So men behaving well,
Mhm.
men supporting women,
God
or
forbid.
in and that's speaking to speaking to the like quote unquote traditional
Yes.
romance, but it's also if a woman wants to be with another woman, or if two men want to be together, or if a woman wants to be with a man and a woman, whatever she wants to be with, or whoever that main character, whoever they want to be with, they get to choose and they get to set the tone. And like that's just that if our whole society of people start to of women or anybody who's been marginalized starts to see that, that's really threatening. And so, of course, it's gonna everything that can be said to tear it down is gonna be said to tear it down.
Yes. Which I mean, it, it feels like the smallest part of it, being
Mhm.
like female pleasure, for
Yep.
example. It's it's so frustrating that that's the part that's being degraded,
Yeah.
as if women cannot experience pleasure,
Yeah.
or as if people in marginalized bodies should not be experiencing
Mhm.
pleasure. It's like you took this small part, which is still really great, and you're invalidating it.
Yeah.
And it's just it's incredibly frustrating to be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a world where every time we get an inch forward, someone kicks us back. It's
Yeah.
just like,
Well,
let us
that's
have this one thing. Oh my God,
yeah.
let us have it.
That's why we escape into romance, because in these worlds that doesn't happen. And in these worlds, women get to make the choices that they want without any barriers, and the men or the partners in their lives are fully supporting them and empowering them and uplifting them, and that is not typically the norm for
Hmm.
a lot of women. And so there's all of these like accusations that romance novels give women unrealistic expectations. But why is it unrealistic for a woman, however she looks, to expect that her partner makes her orgasm every time
I do
that
not,
she wants
yeah,
to?
I do not find that to be unrealistic.
Right? I don't know why that has to sound radical, but apparently
Yes,
it does.
that's such an excellent point. Yeah, the fact that these are just, again, we're like, the bar is
Like the
in the
floor.
ground, you guys. The bar is subterranean. Like,
Yeah.
and that's asking too much.
Yeah.
That's being too
So
much.
we have to
You
put it
are too
down.
much.
Yep, we have to hide
Yes.
it. We have to make people ashamed of it. We have to find some way to discredit this, because if
Yes.
women raise the bar, what is going to happen to society? And
It's going to be the worst thing
right?
ever. And I see the same kinds of discussions happening in the
Yeah.
world of boudoir. So this is like,
Any
I think I
yeah.
mentioned when we first met, I was like, the Venn diagram, I feel like, between people who want to book a boudoir session and people who read romance novels is
It's a
probably pretty
circle.
small. Yeah, like the worlds very
That
much coexist.
yeah.
So,
Well, it's centering women's pleasure and women's happiness and women's
and their
choice
power
and their
and their
power.
consent and
Yes.
their, like, all of the stuff that we want to be able to feel and express freely in the world,
Mhm.
but can't,
Yeah.
because there's some guy. I say this ironically with as someone with a podcast, but there's some guy with a podcast mic, like, who bought it for
Yeah.
20 bucks off of Amazon and now thinks he knows everything,
Yeah.
letting you know that you're not allowed to do that. I mean, God, I just came across one freaking today on
Yeah.
TikTok. Some guy
Every
being like,
time.
I don't like it when women just put all their stuff out there and they should be dressing modestly. And it's just like, "Would you shut the fuck up?"
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
let us
that's
do
not
what
your
we want. It's
business.
not your
Why do you
business.
care?
And if I were to dress modestly because you find it attractive, then wouldn't dressing modestly be the validation that you are sexually seeking? He
Yeah.
used the phrase like, it doesn't leave anything to the imagination. And it's like, okay, so I solely exist then for the purpose of your sexual fantasies.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating to you that you can't imagine what's going
Happening.
on
You get the
anymore. So,
reality,
yes, so
and the reality
you,
isn't good enough for
yes,
you.
and you get the ownership then.
Yep.
And, oh,
And that's a
God.
huge thing, because so many times the other, I guess I don't wanna say clapback, but the other, like, comment on romance is, there's this whole subcategory of romance that's dark, where
Oh, yeah, tell me
there
more.
are,
What?
that's where explorations of kink or bondage or different types of relationship dynamics, but also, um, things like stalker romances, those have
Mhm.
gotten really popular, or, themes of like consensual non-consent and themes of assault or women who are recovering from sexual assault. And so then the comment is, oh well, it's just glorifying all of that in a bad way. And it's like, but it's not, because what it this genre is really powerful because it can first show women that their preferences are not bad. It can show that their preferences are not inherently dirty. It also can show women that have experienced, like 60% of dark romance readers have experienced sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
And it is actually a really powerful healing tool. It's like literally
Wow.
it's exposure therapy in a lot of ways, to see a woman who has experienced what they have experienced take back the control and the narrative of that situation, and they almost get to relive but in charge
I
and
have
in control.
goosebumps. I
And
have
it's like,
goosebumps.
so then people want to say, well, it's just romanticizing it. I don't I don't think you've ever read a dark romance then, because no part of that was ever romanticized. Was it real and honest? Yeah. Did it also give the reader and the woman in the story the chance to take back control and finish the story? Because the book didn't end when she got assaulted. That's the story is just beginning. And we get to see so much more. But then again, it's this sexually explicit content is exactly what it got boiled down to. And it's like, no, because now you get 300 pages of her
Yeah.
fighting her power back and learning that she can have a sexual relationship that's satisfying and consensual, and she can move on with her life, and she can recover, and she can own her power. And again, why are we so upset? Like, why do we want to take that away from women? It's literally using psychotherapy tools
Hmm.
without even realizing it. But God forbid.
Yeah, God forbid. I mean, oh, this is like this again, romance novels are not the world that I'm in, and like as you niche down, this is all like so intriguing to me. I'm just really happy that women are healing
Hmm.
from these kinds of books.
Yeah. And they're getting through these communities like Book Talk and Bookstagram, they're also getting to connect with other women. And the female friendships that come out of these spaces is really, really powerful. I've met some of my absolute best friends who've helped me through some of, the normal trials of life, and who've just been there to yap about books when you need somebody to talk
Hmm.
to. But for women who have experienced different things, you might find that like camaraderie or that ability to say or have these conversations like, I've experienced that too, and you're not alone, you're not broken, you're not dirty, and we can heal together. And that's also really powerful, because we need more women in community, because that's how we make cultural change,
Hmm.
to be more accepting, more open to whatever preferences or dynamics somebody wants in their life and in their relationships. Because we say that, but still to this day, what is even the norm, even as we make so much progress in we have so far to come. This is the romance genre, like publishing has so far to come. It is nowhere near as diverse and inclusive as it could be, but it is a hell of a lot better than it used to be, and I don't think we should discredit that either, and the progress that has been made. But if you aren't in a monogamous relationship, that's still that's still a step too far. If you
Mm.
are transgender, that's still a step too far. If you are asexual, there's still a step too far in a lot of, and that's not me saying that. That's just what the culture and what publishing is saying. If you aren't white, that's a step too far in a lot of ways, because publishing still, while it's getting better about being inclusive to all sexual orientations, it is not quite, it's getting better in being diverse in race. It's not great. It's
Yeah.
not great.
Yeah.
Um, it's, it's making progress
Okay.
slowly year over year. It's better now than it was in 2020, and it was better in 2020 than it was in 2015, but we're still talking like 10% versus 8% versus 5%.
I was gonna say if I walk into, a Barnes and Noble or like a
Mhm.
bookshop or
Yeah.
I'm assuming I will still find that no shade to Daniel Steele, but like
Yep.
that sort of narrative more so than perhaps like it's
Yeah.
hard to find inclusivity,
Yeah.
I think, at like big box stores. I'm not
Yes.
sure, maybe I'm being
It's get no,
inaccurate,
it's
but
getting it's no, you're accurate. It is getting better.
okay.
So there's a lot of the like big romance publishers like Forever and Bloom and Avon and Berkeley. Those are kind of like the big four that I can think of right now. There's so many though that they are really working to find marginalized authors to write own voices stories and publish them, which is wonderful. But that's also there's millions of indie authors that like that's most of what I read. Most of the books that I read are not traditionally published because they're not mainstream enough because they're not
Yeah,
accepted
they're not
enough.
following the status quo.
Exactly.
And
And they're
publishers, I
businesses.
was going to say publishers have to look at numbers. They have to
Yep.
see what sells.
And it will sell, but it's also a risk that they're, and I'm not and I don't, I can't speak to why they do or don't choose what books they
Yeah.
do, but they I do know they are making an effort and they are still making mistakes and trying to improve and the readers are holding them accountable more and more. And then, the big box stores, they don't have to. They publish or they sell what they can get from the like big publishers or the
Yeah.
printing houses essentially. And it's getting better. Barnes and Noble, the romance section is so much better than it used to be, but it's still primarily um like MF, so man and a woman in a monogamous relationship. So that's going to be the primary like it's not going to necessarily be as diverse as it could be and they're typically going to be white.
Mm.
Um it's getting better though. So
Okay.
it is like they are making like there is steps being made,
Mhm.
but when you look at the tables you'll see are a little bit more diverse because they're really trying to promote those. But then you go to the actual shelves and you're like, okay, well, everything was on the table.
Oh,
The
yeah.
15
Yeah.
options in the entire romance section were all on the table. So it looks really diverse from the front. But then there's, 1,000 other options
Yeah.
behind on the actual shelves. But then that's where looking at our like indie bookstores, they are like indie authors and indie bookstores are just making waves in the best ways. We have 2 here in Milwaukee that I just have loved seeing their selection, and they as indie booksellers, they get to choose what goes in their stores.
Okay.
So, they're not having publishers buying shelf space, and they're getting more flexibility about what they can put on shelves. And then if there are local authors or independent authors that want to send copies to them to sell, they get to choose if they want to. So they get to curate really great selections. And both of the bookstores here have done a really great job in choosing diverse books and selling diverse options. And
Oh, I'm
so
so
it's really
happy.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love hearing that small businesses are out there
Oh,
crushing it.
yeah. Yeah, I know, it's like all of the intersections of all of these things that I'm like, as a small business owner, I love to see small business
Yeah.
owners crushing it. As women, I love to see women just doing what they love, and then in this intersection of, like, centering, like, women doing whatever the fuck they want and taking ownership and power and pleasure, I'm like, "Okay, this is awesome. Like,
Yeah.
let's keep going. What else can we do?" And then I'm like, "How does this tie into my business?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's so clear how it ties into my business because that's what I get to do in
I
my
was
day
gonna
to
say, you
day."
work in branding, which is
Yeah.
essentially storytelling.
Yeah. It's storytelling and it's getting, my focus working with women business owners is about giving them the confidence and the power to own who they are as they are, however that is. And, I use the word bold often, and bold looks different for everybody. And womanhood looks different for everybody and femininity looks different for every woman and finding ways to help women embrace what that looks like for them and then turn it into words and visuals like it's super super empowering for me and for my clients. And so I was thinking about that when I was driving here. I was like, hey, there actually is so much connection here that I've
Mhm.
never really fully dived into.
That is so cool. I mean, it shows that I think the values in our life
Mhm.
end up being a part of quite literally everything we
Yeah.
do. So that compassion, the empathy, the pursuit of boldness for other women, like those are
Yeah.
going to show up in every
Yeah.
facet, and that's pretty cool about being a small business
Yeah.
owner. We get to write whatever
Yeah.
we get to do it. We get to run our lives kind of however we
Hmm.
want because it aligns with our
Yeah.
values.
And we get to write our world to be and create the world that we're, that we work within to be how we want. So we get to choose the people, to an extent, obviously, we gotta gotta pay them bills.
Yeah. Oh, I know. God, do I know. I'm like, how interesting it is to be anti-capitalist but also run a business.
Yeah,
But
it's a very
yes.
difficult intersection where you're like, I don't, but I
But
have
also,
bills.
I don't think I could go to like Wells Fargo and be like, "Hey, so this month, yeah, they won't let that
Yeah.
fly."
This
Um,
month, women's empowerment is on the DL, like really struggling.
yes.
I don't know if you've like opened the news, but I can't pay my bill. No,
Yeah, no,
Wells
they're
Fargo's
they're not
not.
gonna let that. They're not gonna let that slide. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like we could probably talk about this forever,
I
but
Yeah,
as out of
I
respect to
do
the readers,
online.
yeah, no, that's true.
That's
Yes. Okay. So I want to
the.
get to like where everybody can find you
Mhm.
in a second, but I feel like there might be some people listening who maybe are like me
Mhm.
and have never cracked open a
Oh.
spicy novel. I know. I know. What, I guess, advice or maybe
Mm.
recommendations would you have for someone who's like, okay, I'm ready to like dip my toes in the water, but maybe don't throw me in yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's oh, there's so many places to start because it's such a wide genre. So if you have another interest, like I don't know, if you have ever watched Yellowstone or any sort of Western, well, I've got cowboy romances for you.
Okay.
If you like sports, any type of sport from football, hockey, basketball, or wrestling, or MMA fighting, or Formula One, or motocross, I
Uh-huh.
also have a recommendation for you
Okay.
because that's what's so cool is you get to explore all parts of the world through romance and through stories. So
Okay,
it
so
just
maybe like find a book that has another
yes,
interest that I know I like this
yep,
interest, and then find a romance novel that is about
yeah.
that interest.
And if you just Google it, there's like a million Reddit forums that will give recommendations. And then oftentimes, like a Goodreads list will pop up that some users created of like books within that. And typically, those are like other tropes that things get dialed into. So even if you think of like a dynamic that you're interested in learning about, or, I mean, if you're if you're deconstructing from religion or recovering from, being in Catholicism or whatever, you're religious and you're looking to heal from that, like there's a book called Priest.
Oh.
I mean, that's maybe not a beginner, but
Okay.
but it's also like a really great example of how you would never think that reading a spicy romance might help somebody who's recovered from religious and sexual trauma. But
Mm.
that one does.
There's a lot of overlap happening
Yes.
within this genre, which is
Yeah.
so
I would
cool.
say like my top authors that I recommend it would be to start with that you can find at a bookstore. Kennedy Ryan is really wonderful. Um, I love Helen Huang. Her book, The Bride Test, was so fun. I made a list, so I'm gonna pull
Oh
it up
yes,
because
please
I
do.
am otherwise going to forget somebody and be like, "What's wrong with you?" Um, I love Socia Simone. She's the one who wrote Priest.
Okay.
Highly recommend. Olivia Dade writes plus size women, and her book Spoiler Alert was one of the first that I read where I got to see a woman that looked like me. And that was really, really cool. Talia Hibbert also writes plus size women. That was actually her book, Get a Life, Chloe Brown, was actually the first. That was the book I was talking about. The first one that I read where I was like, oh, that's that's my body. And then, Casey McQuiston, Alexis Daria, Jasmine Gilroy, Hannah Bonham Young, all of these authors are fantastic. Some of my favorites, a trope that I am quite fascinated with is the trope phrase "why choose." It used to be called reverse harem, but it has been the genre and authors are renaming it "why choose," where um it's in the name. Why should a woman have to choose one? and it's dynamics exploring like polyamorous relationships. So Emily Rath is the hockey romance writer that I was talking about, who's getting to rewrite and reimagine that sports world to be more inclusive. And then Abby Millsaps is an indie author out of Ohio, who I absolutely adore. Her sports romances and that are also exploring those different dynamics. Really cool.
Very cool. I always do this thing, Babe of the Week, where we like shout out someone who is doing cool stuff, and I feel like you just listed
Yeah.
off so many
Yeah,
fantastic
those
babes
are
of the
my
week.
babes of the week. I mean, Emily Rath, it's not to like well, yeah, actually I'm gonna give her a plug because she released a new book this week that I read. So like happy release week to her. And her book fucking strong. So that's super cool. And then yeah, Abby Millsaps is probably my other babe of the week because I've gotten to become like friendly with her and read her books in advance and be lucky enough to beta read or alpha read for her. So while she's still writing the story, I get to read early drafts and provide feedback and that's I'm like, who the fuck am I
Yeah, that is so cool.
to get to provide feedback to you? But I mean, yeah, I'll read these stories early. Sure, you want my opinions? I have plenty all the time, and it's usually just me screaming, "Oh my god, Abby, this is so amazing!" But she's also written some really like she writes about characters like that in her last series that she just completed, one of her characters has premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and I was reading that book and that series, and I was like, "Is this fucking play about us?" I was like, "This is me." So I literally took that and was able to go to my doctor and get a diagnosis for myself, and I like
Oh my
that's the
god.
power of romance, where you're like, "Wait, that looks really familiar." Uh, that might be me.
Oh
And
my
able to get, there's no cure, but there's ways to get treatment and support and that is really, really cool. So
That
those are
is
my
that's freaking
I
awesome.
know, and everybody wants to then say that romance is all about sex and
Yeah.
smut, and I'm like, huh.
Oh my god. Okay. Well, what a way to end this. Yeah, I mean, well, and to touch on kind of this like, oh, I relate to what this author is saying.
Mhm.
I mean, that kind of ties into my babe of the week, Jess Baker, and actually, I don't know, back. Okay, so speaking on like relating to the authors and the characters that she's writing, that kind of ties into my babe of the week, which is Jess Baker, and I have two of her books.
I've read that
Not
top one,
yay, not romance novels. They are indeed kind of like self-help books, but
but they are really powerful
they're
because
so good.
there's a place for all types of literature or
100%.
reading.
And these I'm a big fan of like memoirs. I'm a
Yeah,
big fan
I
of
love
like
them. I love
people who are like, let me tell you about my life.
Yeah,
Like that's
I
what
love
I enjoy
memoirs.
reading, and that's sort of where
Yeah.
these lie. So the very first book that I read when I was like on this whole journey of like, oh, I need to be nicer to myself, like was no
Yeah.
things no one will tell fat girls.
Yep.
And this book, like you mentioned changing your brain chemistry, this
That
changed
one, same.
my brain chemistry. And
Yeah.
then land whale, also great, like turning insults into nicknames, why body image is hard, and how diets can kiss my ass. Like these
I
are
need
right
to
up
read
my
that
alley.
second one because that first one I read and loved, and there's another one, The Body Is Not an Apology. That one was, like,
That's on
game
my list.
changing.
Yep.
Yeah. I at one point had a book club where we were reading these books, but it petered out because it's a lot of work to run a book club. But yeah, they're fantastic.
Oh, good. So I'm glad I'm so happy that you read one
Yeah.
of these as
So
well,
good.
because yeah, if you're like, okay, I need my like awesome spicy romance
Yep.
novels and maybe I'll throw in a memoir or self-help book.
Yes.
Great. Now you have
There's
recommendations from both of us.
balance.
Yes, we need
Yes.
both. I think we need
But
both.
but again, there's that just because you read one spicy romance doesn't mean that you're not able to read anything else.
Oh,
And that's
100%.
but it gets thrown out because 'cause you're like, "Oh, you read that." And it's like, "Well, I read so much more, but you're not ready for that conversation, so why am I wasting my breath?"
So fair. So fair. Yeah. Well, great. I'm loving these recommendations. I'm loving these babe of the week.
Mhm.
As we, I guess, wrap up, let people know where they can find you. And of course, we will link to all of this in the description so you can find her.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram in multiple places. So Instagram for, books, all things reading. If you are listening and want a specific recommendation, slide 'em into my DMs. It is truly my favorite thing to do is tell people what to read. And it's at A Blonde Bookish Girl. And then I also have my business Forward Branding, and that's at Forward, FOREWORD branding. And those are 2 places to find me.
Amazing. And you should go follow her right now as soon as you're done listening. Unless you're driving. Then
Yeah.
wait to pick up your phone.
Or you're not
But
interested in seeing if you're not open to.
well, yeah, I would say
I mean, you're listening to this, so.
if you finally finished this episode and you went, yes, I hated all of that. Yeah, maybe don't follow us. I'm not sure why you stuck it out, but
Yeah.
for the studio, if you want to follow the work that we're doing here at Bucks and Boudoir, you can find me on just about every social media platform. And then the website is bucksandboudoir.com, which of course will also be in the description. And if you liked this episode or you know someone who loves spicy romance novels, please send this episode to them. Like it, subscribe,
All the things.
all the things.
Come visit her studio because it's
Yeah,
beautiful
oh,
and
thank you
she's so
much.
talented.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is everything. Thank you again for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And I'm going to leave you all with the same reminder that I always do, which is that your body is a good body. All right, you better be nice to it, okay? Be a little kinder to yourself, and we will talk again soon.